It is Friday here on 3 and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben, glad you are with us, and no shortage of things to get to, including college football being turned on its head here with the proposal set to be brought forth next week to go to a 12-team playoff, potentially starting in 2023, and what all that entails in terms of auto bids and conference champions and things of that nature. So we'll talk more about that. Adrian Peterson, Georgia Southern legend, will join us. He obviously took part in the 1AA playoffs, and we'll get his perspective as a former player, how that works, and the grind of going through that season. So he'll join us coming up a little bit later in the program. We'll also chat with Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, about the proposed college football playoff rule. But what about those who are going to be in charge of enacting it and trying to put this big, huge wheel in motion? We figured we'd reach out to somebody who's had a lot of experience involved with collegiate athletics, the former commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, WAC, and MAC, Carl Benson, kind enough to join us here on 3 and Out as we start the show. Mr. Commissioner, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good afternoon, fellas. Good to hear from you again.
Hey, we're glad you're able to spend some time here with us. Obviously, we're hearing next week, 12-team playoff proposal going to be put forth and more than likely approved for college football. You've kind of been around college athletics for a long, long time. How do you see this getting enacted, and how drastically does college football change just by going from 4 to 12 teams?
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. And looking back, I started my commissioner career in 1990 when there was no playoff, and I've seen the evolution of the Bowl Alliance and the Bowl Coalition and the BCS, and then was around the table when the CFP was created in 2012. And here we are, 9 years later, and the 4-team playoff appears to be headed to 12 teams. And there's always been a lot of speculation of how long is it going to take to get beyond 4. And I think the stars were aligned correctly, and there's always been some trigger when you look at the evolution. There's always been something that happened that maybe moved things ahead a little bit faster than expected. And I would be safe to say that this last year, the COVID year of intercollegiate athletics, may have motivated the powers to be to move towards and to this 12-team playoff.
And Mr. Commissioner, you're talking about a format here that obviously is going to be representative, inclusive of group of 5 conferences, not only with an auto bid, but potential at large bids as well. And this larger championship format has been talked about for a while. In your mind, when did the momentum for this start, for kind of expanding this? Was this something that was thought about 10, 15, 20 years ago?
Well, again, the decision to go with the 2 teams and then the 4 teams, and specifically when it went to 4 teams, people thought that was a big step. And again, the experts and those that want to speculate all the time thought that it was just a matter of time before 4 became 8, before 16. To go from 4 to 12, I think, probably caught people off guard. We also, the contract that was signed in 2012 was a 12-year deal. We all know that most contracts don't run its term, but with 5 years left on it, I think that may have caught some people by surprise. And again, as I said, the COVID, the impact of COVID on intercollegiate athletics last year from a financial standpoint may have been that piece that pushed it over the ledge.
And Commissioner, obviously, when you look at something like this, I mean, for what it could do for G5 is obviously incredible to go from 4 to 12 teams. You being a former commissioner, representing more than just one G5 conference, is even though you're looking at it in good faith, do you still have to see it to believe it come 2023?
I was asked that question earlier today, and when I saw the announcement yesterday, and they said 6 conferences, my first reaction was that the American Conference had convinced the powers to be that they needed to be one of those 6. until I read it again and saw that there was no reference to any of the P5 or G5, that it was simply, the champions, the top-ranked champions from the 6 conferences. And, that was a very, very pleasant surprise. I was worried that this environment, with all the pressure on the Power 5 to generate more money, that the Group of 5 was in jeopardy, perhaps, of being continue to be included in under the Big Ten. But this became I think a huge step. I was also concerned that if there was a guaranteed spot for the Group of 5, that it might come with some condition, some performance standard that highest champion had to meet. And there have been times when the top ranked Group of 5 was Western Michigan was 15, if I'm not mistaken. I think UCF was even a 15 ranked at one time. So I was worried that they might set some type of a performance standard on it. But this appears to be clear cut. The highest ranked conference from the Group of 5 will be in that playoff and seeded probably more than likely 5 through 12 someplace, but it still doesn't rule out even a Group of 5 still being in the top 4 teams.
At the end of the day, as we're talking with Carl Benson, former commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, is it just about access for the G5 schools at this point? It's we're being used as fodder for W's in some cases, and then when we do get wins, it's not given the same credo as when you get wins against those same teams. Is this just about access? Hey, we're all D1. Give us a chance.
Well, again, I hope that this is a way to eliminate the P5 versus the Group of 5, and I think that would be a big step to take those labels off, and now it's 10 FBS conferences, and we can eliminate that that label. So it's again, there's going to be pressure on that first year, which of the Group of 5 teams gets into the playoff, and how well will they do? What will the television ratings be of the games that they're in? And it's not anything different than when the first back in the 1996, when the BCS gave access to the Group of 5, and Boise State was the first team out of the Group of 5 to earn that BCS spot. And Boise State absolutely blew it out of the water in terms of taking 30,000 fans to Tempe and Arizona, and to beat Oklahoma, and to have such a great overtime game against Oklahoma that goes down in college football history. So I still think there's going to be pressure on that first Group of 5 team that that plays in the playoff to deliver on the field.
Whether it's been Boise State, Mr. Commissioner, or whether it's been Cincinnati or Memphis or Coastal Carolina or whoever, how have you seen the profile of G5 football grow with a collective perspective and some of these teams individually to get us to this point?
Well, to some extent, the Group of 5 has been divided over the last several years as the American tried to separate themselves. I think last year, what Coastal Carolina did was to keep the American from further separating themselves with Cincinnati, and granted, Cincinnati had a difficult ending to their season, as did Coastal Carolina. But in the meantime, I think Coastal Carolina was carrying the torch for the MAC and Conference USA and the Mountain West to to demonstrate that it just isn't the American that deserves to be on that, on that stage. And, prior to that, Boise State had its, opportunities. But really, when you look at the 7 years of the CFP, 5 out of those 7 years, it's been an American Conference team, and UCF has had some great wins in that and some great performances. But I think again, it's still going to require what did you do for me lately for some of these other 4 conferences to make sure that they demonstrate that they belong. Now that they're under the Big Tent, we've got to make sure that they stay under the Big Tent, and that's going to be performance driven.
And Mr. Commissioner, we'd love to get your thoughts on, obviously, name and image likeness is, it's here. And you got Mark Emery sitting there, going through litigation and trying to answer different questions. One thing that came up was post-career healthcare. What are your thoughts on name and image likeness, and what's the likelihood of these athletes getting healthcare when their careers are over?
Well, both I think really important pieces of what do our student athletes deserve to receive, in addition to their education and their the compensation that they're receiving, as a student athlete. These additional extra benefits, and healthcare has always been an important one, and the NCAA over time has been able to try to accommodate insurance policies for student athletes that were paid for in advance, but some type of a guaranteed health care, because we all know that that the injuries suffered by student athletes, especially in the sport of football, sometimes can go unnoticed for many years before there's need for treatment. And the issue of concussions and the brain injuries that occur, I think all that is a big step if that is provided as a kind of as a guaranteed benefit. The NIL still work to be done in terms of hopefully establishing a national protocol on how that will work, so that the student athletes in the state of Georgia aren't being treated differently than the student athletes in Florida or California. And I hope that can still be done here in the next several weeks, or some of those state laws go into effect July 1. So the NIL is here. I think we've heard the last several days that there are companies, retailers that are trying to secure the services of student athletes right now to go into effect on July 1. In some of these states, there will be student athletes making public appearances at car dealerships and other retail outlets for the first time, not having to do it undercover, that they're actually going to get paid for it. And that, I think that's a good sign. And we just need to get the controls in place to make sure that it can be monitored and controlled.
I was going to say, kind of finally, follow up there to that is, where does that fall to kind of oversee that? Is it the schools? I know the NCAA seems like they kind of passed the buck on to Congress to enact some kind of legislation to oversee this. But when this is all said and done, who's overseeing this to make sure that it's done fairly, out in the open, and that everybody's that has an opportunity to benefit from name, image, likeness can do so?
I think that once, if we assume that there will be a national standard, and that the national legislation will usurp any of this state, and we're under one set of NIL guidelines, the NCAA is prepared then to put in place the enforcement procedures and the controls, and some of the limitations, even in terms of what is marketplace, how to determine what is the marketplace value. And that's going to be hard to determine. That a car dealership in Statesboro, Georgia, or Savannah, Georgia, may establish a fee scale for a Georgia Southern student athlete, and yet up in Atlanta, the Georgia Tech or the car dealership in Atlanta may be paying the Georgia Tech or the Georgia State even student athlete greater for an hour of autograph session. Those are going to be some I think some difficult enforcement procedures, but again, it's out there. It's going to happen, and we hope that it's able to be done in a manner that can be controlled and not lead to further capitalism, I guess, commercialism of our student athletes.
Carl Benson, former commissioner of the Sun Belt Conference, our guest here on 3 and Out. Mr. Commissioner, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas. Good to be with you again.
Appreciate it. Carl Benson joining us here on 3 and Out. A lot to get to there with name, image, likeness. We have a lot to talk about in terms of the playoff still to come on the show as well. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. And so we go for some things that may take place or look very likely to take place next week, the college football playoff. We'll talk to Adrian Peterson, Georgia Southern legend, about that coming up in about 10 minutes here on the show, as he obviously played in a collegiate football playoff at the Division I AA level there at Georgia Southern. We'll talk to him about that. To some things that are happening right now, and that is NBA playoffs, Hawks and 76ers tonight, game 3. So Hawks with a chance to retake the lead at home tonight if they can come out, obviously, and keep the 76ers at bay. 76ers with a chance to take the series lead and kind of turn the series again by becoming a road team to get a dub there.
Well, I think it's going to start with defense. Look, when you're in the playoffs in the NBA, you got to have the go-to scores, and Trey has been that. You got to have the role player score, and you've had multiple guys do that. But look at some of these finals. I know Christian was talking the other day about you had a game getting to the 120s. But last night didn't Milwaukee win like 80-something to 80-something with that game against the Nets? So I think when you get to this time of the season, you've got to get stops. I think you can set the tone for a game on the defensive side of the floor. So that's where I'm looking for Atlanta. I think you know what you're going to get out of Trae Young. I think for the most part, your scoring has been proficient, has been balanced. My question is, can you get back to some of those great defensive showings you had earlier in the playoffs?
This Atlanta team lost its second game in the first series against the Knickerbockers. Obviously, this Philadelphia team is much better. Joel Embiid, I think you go with the Kevin Thomas method. Don't spend so much energy trying to stop him, because you can't stop him. Force his teammates to go out there and beat you. I do know that Atlanta, it's one thing if Atlanta have never beaten Philly. It's another thing if, they was down 0-2. The series is tied 1-1. Atlanta seems to be a team that makes great adjustments. Dare I say, Nate McMillan makes great adjustments to be able to, because the thing about the playoffs is each game, one game has nothing to do with the next game. You got to be able to adjust. You know how they're going to want to play you. You know what type of sets they're going to be in. And I just think that when you look at what this Atlanta team has, it has youth. It still has fresh legs as far as like the playoffs go. They're gonna sink or swim as Trae Young goes, and we know that. But I think they got to feed off this crowd, feed off the energy. Don't try to play this Philadelphia style of play. Get up and down the court, get some quality stops at the end of each half, definitely at the end of the fourth quarter. Force Philadelphia into some bad shots, and hopefully at the end, 5-6 minutes left in the game, you still got a chance to win, because BJ, basketball is, real similar to football in the sense to where as long, last 2 minutes of the game of football, if you can go and run the football, get a first down, the game is over. Basketball, you force the favorites in this sense, Philadelphia, to go out there and make some bad shots. Trae Young takes some good quality shots, get a couple of stops with Clint Capella and those guys. And I think Atlanta got good a shot as any. Once again, it's crazy how the narrative shifts only when Philadelphia is playing well. Because when it's Atlanta, it's, they just got one. But Kevin, tied 1-1, anything can happen, because you at least getting a little bit more comfortable, with the opposing team.
Sure. I mean, no secrets in a 7-game series. I think I'm interested to see the crowd tonight in Atlanta come out and supporting the Hawks in this series to try to will them to a big home court advantage. I know that's not always been the case in Atlanta, that they are the home court mecca or home field mecca at any sport necessarily. But, look, I think if you're Atlanta, I still feel like this whole rest of the postseason run, you should be able to play free and loose. As Ben said, I think you're looking at a roster on the other side, especially with some key players that have injury history, that have a history of breaking down. Joel Embiid, there's questions whether he was even going to play last game. Maybe it's going to be abounding on Joel Embiid for the rest of the series of, will he play this game? Will he won't play? But look, if you're Atlanta, I feel like you're at home. Go out there and play with confidence. I mean, the only negative thing that's really happened outside of losing a game is you lost DeAndre Hunter for the rest of the playoffs. Outside of that, there's been a lot of things that have gone your way here in the postseason to make you feel like you should be a believer at this point. Now, are they better than Brooklyn or Milwaukee? Well, we'll have to get to that point before we can have those discussions. But at this point, you're playing with house money. Go out there and play, aggressively and get after it and see what happens. Because again, outside that locker room, nobody expected you to be here, and it seems like this team is playing kind of loose, and it's fun to see them go out there and attack and have fun.
And with Hunter out, who's a really good, versatile player offensively and defensively, I'm looking at Danilo Gallinari. You know, he's been a guy that's been able to score for you in really important stretches. I think had over 20 the other night. I'm looking at him. He's going to need to hit some big threes defensively. Can he be consistent? And then rebounding. I think he had 9 rebounds the other night as well. So without Hunter, you're going to need some of those wing players to be a little more consistent, a little more productive, a little more proficient. So we'll see what Danilo Gallinari can do tonight.
And you got that tonight. We'll get to some Braves talk coming up in just a little bit. As obviously yesterday, just brutal the way that one ended up. We'll get to that in about 20 minutes. But when we return, Adrian Peterson, Georgia Southern, legendary running back, will join us. He, of course, participated in the FCS playoffs, which was 15 games in totality. We could be talking about 16 or 17 games, depending on who makes it into the national championship game with this new 12-team proposed format. BJ and Ben, we'll ask AP about that and more when we come back. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Of course, college football set for a big week. It's already been a big week this week, but when the kind of rubber meets the road, it'll be a big week next week when that 12-team playoff proposal gets formally introduced and likely approved by the College Football Playoff Committee. And when I say approved, it's still got more layers to go through, BJ and Ben, obviously, before you get to something that's going to work. I mean, you still have to work out the TV side of it. I think there's a lot of people that have real concerns about, so wait, we're good enough to get a top 4 seed, but we don't get to host a playoff game? And some other people might get to when it's all said and done. So a lot of things to unravel outside of just saying, hey, we approved an 8-team playoff. So we'll get to more of that coming up in just a little bit. But joining us here, he played in the playoff during his time at Georgia Southern, where he was just truly amazing. A legend. I don't think I need to say anything else other than legend. Adrian Peterson joins us here on 3 and Out. AP, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. How you guys doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. Obviously, a lot of talk about the 12-team playoff that appears to be coming in college football. You were a part there at the 1AA level. Ultimately, 15 games. If you guys went to the national championship, which you did, what are kind of your thoughts now when you see the proposal of the 12-team playoff? Obviously, with more access capabilities for teams like Georgia Southern coming out of the Sun Belt.
It's great. I think it's a great opportunity for other universities. You know, when you look in the NCAA men's basketball, I mean, any team pretty much has an opportunity, and I think it's great because it just creates more energy because now every team goes into it thinking they got a chance, whereas you know in the past. You know, there are only about 2 or 3 conferences who really have a legit chance of making it. Some of the outside conferences may have if they play about 3 or 4 P5 schools and upset those. But you know, it gives everybody, well, not everybody, but more teams a opportunity to win it.
And some of your top highlights, AP, were from the playoffs. I mean, what were those experiences like? What are your memories like thinking back to playing for a championship, going round to round, winning championships, and playing in that playoff format?
It was great. It was great. And, you know, the regular season is great. But you kind of know if I don't play well this game, guess what? I got another opportunity next week. Whereas when you get to the playoffs, it's one and done. You lose and your season over with. So of course it's gonna magnitude your performance. So it's gonna magnitude, you know, the fans, the expectations, and that's when you see great football.
And AP, I mean, you mentioned something like this is a chance for, you know, more teams in the G5 to be able to have those spotlight games. I mean, what, you know, Georgia, as you mentioned, you had as good as a, you know, post-game career as you had in the regular season. What is it going to be like, you know, when, I ain't going to say if, when Georgia Southern is one of those 12 teams getting to host a playoff game for the entire college football world to be, you know, to be touching down to Statesboro?
It's going to bring excitement and more notoriety. So notoriety means that it's going to just continue to expand the brand of Georgia Southern, but also the brand of college football. Because again, going into the season, if you know you have an opportunity, that's going to just increase everyone's awareness, everyone's performance, and once again, just enhance what already is a great opportunity, which is the NCAA.
Adrian Peterson, Georgia Southern legend, joining us here on 3 and Out. And AP, I know a lot of folks talk about, well, if you expand playoffs, every game doesn't matter like it does now. I mean, you played obviously in the 1AA playoffs. Did you feel like the regular season games, there were weeks where it didn't matter what happened?
I would disagree with that. You know, a lot of these guys are having dreams and aspiration of going on and playing in the next level. So you can come out and have if you're receiving 6 drops, then immediately your stock as an NFL prospect is going to drop. So I think every game matters, but with the opportunity to go on and play in the playoff system, it's going to magnitude everything and bring more, I think, excitement to the beginning and the ending of the season.
And I know some people have talked about the FBS seasons getting longer in terms of, more games, understandably. You played in 15 games a couple of times in a season. What was it like managing that load as a player, as a student athlete, and having the regular season, but then potentially, a first round, a second round, semifinals, the championship, et cetera?
And I'm a little different, so I just believe it's just something you have to deal with. For myself, we played 15 games, 3 of my 4 years here, and then I went on to play 8 years in the NFL, and even now I still manage about 3 to 4 miles a day. So I mean, if you're worried about getting injuries, then you may want to pick another sport, because you cannot predict when and where you're going to get hurt. And that just goes back to taking care of your body through the week. Get in there, you get your treatment, you get your rest, get your sleep, eat well, sleep well, and you'll be ready to go.
And AP, when I think about something like this, when I think about 12 teams, to me, I could care less about P5 and G5. I think it just makes college football again. You mentioned the NCAA tournament as it pertains to basketball. When you guys was working out in Statesboro, you guys wasn't doing no different than what they was doing in Tuscaloosa, what they was doing in Athens, what they was doing in Atlanta. With something like this, doesn't it just get back to, look, everybody's being celebrated. It's only going to be 12 of them standing, but you don't have to go to a, quote, bigger school to finally get recognized on a national level.
I totally agree. And that was when I got inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame at the interview portion. That's one thing that I was very thankful for, is that they didn't overlook myself and others, because we didn't go to the Division I schools. They looked at the tape, looked at the stats, and looked at the games that we won, and evaluated everybody on the same stage. And so again, you are absolutely correct. Everybody has an opportunity, and again, that's just gonna increase the excitement going into the season.
Adrian Peterson joining us here on 3 and Out. And AP, obviously you've been back around Georgia Southern here since they've been in the Sun Belt. Put us inside the mindset of getting ready to play in the playoffs versus just going to go play a bowl game. What's kind of the difference there when you're talking about the players and people on staff say, hey, we're going to go play in bowl game XYZ, or we're getting ready for a playoff game? Kind of tell us the difference in mindset there.
I would say a bowl game is exactly what it says. It's a bowl game, and when you say we're going to go play in the playoff system to have an opportunity to win a national championship, I think that says enough. You got an opportunity to do something very special. No knocks against the bowl game, but when you have an opportunity to be the last man standing, and that's a huge opportunity for everyone.
And you talk about national championships. I mean, when you think about Georgia Southern football and you think about your career, I mean, there are national championships that reflect the success and the achievement and the hard work. Bowl games are obviously great. Big regular season wins are obviously great. Conference titles are obviously great. But just how special is a national championship in college football?
It's the ultimate. it's the ultimate, and again, just for everyone to have that opportunity, because in years past, um, many schools didn't really have that opportunity. You could say it in preseason, but when you really looked at it on paper, uh, truth be told, you don't have an opportunity. So, and a lot of schools, man, and a lot of guys, all you want is an opportunity, is a shot, and I think that's a great thing.
And AP, you mentioned that when you went into the College Football Hall of Fame, you appreciate the fact that they didn't look over, they didn't look past you, they didn't look over you. It wasn't it really came down to how did you play the running back position, what was your production, how did you go out there and perform. In a sense, you football royalty, and it shouldn't matter where you played at, but because of where you played, when it comes to stuff like this, you guys get looked over. How much is this about G5 schools and the G5 football players as a whole yelling to the NCAA? Respect us, man, because we put it on to strap it up just like everybody else.
And that's what it is. We do the same running, the same lifting, same number of hours on the field, off the field, study hall, tutoring classes. It's the same thing. So again, when you give everyone an opportunity, I think that's once again is going to just enhance the excitement of every university going in at a season with knowing, if we control what we can control and handle our business, I did end up how many 12 games, 11 games, we have an opportunity to go in and win a couple more and hold up the national championship trophy.
And you think about the Sun Belt, obviously, which is a conference clearly on the rise. Georgia Southern's brand speaks for itself. You've seen Appalachian State, obviously. You've seen, Coastal Carolina in the top 10 last year, Louisiana in the top 20 last year. How good is this league as folks get set to learn even more about conferences like the Sun Belt and programs like Georgia Southern?
It's a great opportunity. It's great. And again, when the other teams are ranked high in the top 10, if they are supposed to be there, then go out and beat them. If you can't beat them, then they deserve the opportunity. And I think with this, I think it gives that. It gives that. If I'm not good enough, then come and beat me, and then and we'll see. But if I am and we win, then kind of give me a little more respect and understand that we do the same drills you guys do, same weightlifting, same conditioning, same number of practice, study hall. Academics is important too. They aren't studying any harder than we are.
Adrian Peterson, our guest here on 3 and Out. And again, college football expected to approve, or the playoff committee expected to approve a 12-team college football playoff next week. Adrian Peterson, Georgia Southern legend, our guest here on 3 and Out. AP, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Thank you guys for having me. Always a good time, man.
Appreciate it. Adrian Peterson joining us here on 3 and Out. So much more to get to. We'll respond to that. Carl Benson. And the Braves blew another one yesterday. Who's at fault for that? So much to unravel here on a Friday. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here on this Friday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. We'll chat with Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, coming up in the final hour. We'll get his thoughts on the 12-team playoff. Also, the kind of the pros and cons of what is potentially to come. We'll get into that coming up in hour number 2 as well. But Braves and Marlins tonight, BJ, got to bounce back after the Braves happened. No runs, hardly at all the last 2 games, and no bullpen when it mattered the last couple of games as well.
Brutal. I mean, you talk about having the game all but one with 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth. Nope. Then you talk about a 3-1 lead going into the bottom of the 10th. Nope. You didn't even get an out. And we've seen, of course, Will Smith have his issues, but now Chris Martin. So, Kevin, I will ask you the question I ask you every 7 to 10 days. Okay, who at this point do you trust to close out a game?
Luke Jackson. That's being real. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. I think I know Chris and I went back and forth on this. He said, look, the bullpen pitched pretty well, except for the last last inning or the last few, which obviously that's the most important. It's the offense not scoring any runs. And while there's something to that, you were still in the final inning twice. So what? They scored 2 runs in 18 innings. You went to the last inning twice with a chance to get a dub, and you didn't. So the offense gave you enough to win, and you did not. You did not. You did not.
I mean, Kevin, tell us how you really feel. I mean, because Kevin doesn't like the fact that this bullpen is living up to its reputation. You take 2 steps forward as a team,
and they have a reputation will be putting it nice.
No, I'm saying, listen, AJ Minter, at first Kevin was like, AJ Minter, you saw what AJ Minter did? Yep, the whole world saw what he did. And then BJ goes, Freddie Freeman just homer. Like, oh, okay. And then you go to the bottom, then you go to the 10th. You can't get away from this bullpen, no matter how good the team, because this bullpen has lost a lot of ways, like with runs, no runs, protecting the leads. Kevin, is there light at the end of the tunnel, aka the bullpen?
I don't know. If I was Brian Snitker, I wouldn't have any hair either. Yeah, and again, I remember I said, hey, I thought the Braves should have re-signed Mark Melancon in the offseason. And a lot of people said, why? Well, for all those who question why I said that, go look him up right now. He's got the most saves.
Whoa.
It won't mean just saying. Look it up. You need a microscope to see
Coming at people.
Yeah, go work out. Exactly, Christian Gokel. We've got more to come. Hour 2. We'll take 3 when we come back. We're talking college football playoff as well on this Friday afternoon. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live, ESPN Coastal.com, also live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Good to have you back. Hour 2 of 3 and Out. So much to get to with the college football playoffs. What are the good things that we've heard about the 12-game format so far? What are some potential bad takeaways of the 12-team playoff that are out there as well? We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But first, let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. Take 1, fellas. Last night, I don't know if you've seen the video, but Kevin Durant's personal bodyguard came on the court, who's also apparently a Brooklyn Nets employee. He came on the court during an altercation between Durant and PJ Tucker to break it up. Good look or bad look?
Yeah, it's unique because like you said, when I was reading this, I didn't know that he's on the payroll of the Brooklyn Nets. Now I was talking to Christian. I think this is probably the correct kind of evaluation of the situation. It's not like those two jawing at each other or, going back and forth or talking trash or whatever was all of a sudden going to turn into this like massive melee. Like you see guys talk trash all the time in sports. I think Christian said, look, Tom Brady gets sacked and somebody gets up and flexes or whatever, or somebody hits a home run. So I don't think there was the potential for anything to get kind of crazy, but I guess you could say this. If you're a bodyguard and your job is anytime there is any potential for anything to happen to the person I'm with here, I have to step in. Well, he did that. He was right there. So I guess from a bodyguard standpoint, you did the proper bodyguard thing, but I think probably an overreaction, probably unnecessary. Now what's interesting is all kind of people on Twitter are saying, could the Nets get like a technical foul or something because he's on the Nets payroll? I don't know about that, but yeah, that's a bodyguard doing his job. But I don't think there was any chance anything physical was going to actually happen there.
Kevin Durant can't fight. Straight up and down. That's all. Everything you just said. I mean, the great 50 Cent said it this way: don't throw stones if you live in a glass house, and if you got a glass jaw, you should watch your mouth because I will break your face. PJ Tucker.
Is that poetry?
No, that's actually in his song. This is the thing. We all got friends, right? That want to show their loyalty, right? Nothing screams I get whooped all the time that I got a paid employee who's a bodyguard who came on the court for another player. I mean, Kevin Durant, he's tall, and that's about it. Like, nobody's afraid of Kevin. Nobody's saying, hey, man, Kevin Durant beat the brakes off. No. Kevin Durant talks a lot of trash. He had burner accounts. When it comes to basketball, he the man. But when it comes to them hands, that's a little bit different. It's the worst look because, number one, I didn't know that bodyguards could be paid employees for players. I didn't even know that you can do that. And number two, don't they got security? Don't they got police officers in the court? So PJ Tucker got in his face. He's like, hey, man, you're a little bit too close. PJ Tucker should have, oh my God, he should have knocked him smooth out. KD, I love his game, but BJ, this is the worst look. I come back to me once again. See how BJ does when it's somebody else? That's me. Hey, man, yeah, man, back in the day, I used to have a bodyguard. What you had a bodyguard for? Oh, well, because he got whooped. Somebody beat the brakes off me one time, and I had to get him up. I'm not paying money for another man to look out for me, especially when the man he's looking out for me with is another basketball player. KD, stop having burner accounts. Stop talking trash. Because BJ, I'm just saying, your bodyguard is at the game, and the best thing he's ever done is, hey, listen, if PJ come up in my face, man, I'm gonna be ready. I got you. That's ridiculous. And the Nets ought to be ashamed of that nonsense. KD need a bodyguard. What, is he his driver too? Do we have to carry his luggage too? That's nonsense. He's a do boy. That's what he is. No, it is. He do whatever Kevin Durant tell him to do, and he sicked them on him last night. PJ should have dove over and just knocked. Hey, what's gonna happen to PJ? What, he gonna get thrown out the game? I mean, K should have got thrown out too. I mean, his bodyguard had to watch out for him. Man, listen, learn how to box.
Total bad look, Ben.
It's the worst.
Yeah, total bad look. You're a professional athlete on the court, surrounded by security, and literally people get tackled and dove on if they come on the court. What are you doing out there? Like, no.
Well, Kevin Durant yelling, what do I pay you for?
Yeah.
What do I pay you? Get out of here with that nonsense.
You can't have somebody. You can't go chest to chest with somebody on the court and say, "Hold on, my bodyguard's going to come break this up." No.
No.
Awful look.
Hold on.
Awful
if that's
look.
LeBron, BJ, what are you saying? If LeBron has a bodyguard, what are you saying about that?
LeBron probably does. One of the most
bodyguard.
No,
He's one of
LeBron
the
does
most
not have a bodyguard
famous people in the
that's
world.
required to come on the court and break up fisticuffs.
I'm just saying. I mean, and it kind of looked staged. Like he knew that PJ was gonna come up to him. Like PJ told him, "Listen, when I see you next game, it's gonna be you and me." He be like, "I got something for you." He didn't know that he was bringing his homie with him. That's clown stuff, man. My homie right there, don't stand up.
You're not allowed to come off the bench if you're a player. What if you're a Nets employee? I think that's an interesting question, though, there as well. This is also an interesting question. This is take 2 now, by the way. When you picture the selection committee, what image appears in your head? The college football playoff selection committee.
Confusion.
Although when I just hear the term selection committee, I think the same thing, regardless.
Arguing with like abstract goals in mind, because even though when you talk about the 12-team pool that we've discussed and looks like it's going to happen, what's that?
Not what happens. What image do you get when you hear that phrase?
Right, but what I'm saying is I think about what I think is happening, and what I think is happening is people looking at each other and arguing without a clear goal for what they're arguing for, because it's like we've talked about with the 4 teams, and I think some of this is going to exist with the 6 teams as well. We don't know what the standard is, and I think that same kind of abstract nature, vague nature is going to maintain itself moving forward. So I don't know, a question mark, a room full of papers flying everywhere. I mean, I think uncertainty is what I think about.
Total fail in that answer. Ben, what do you see when?
What? So a question mark is not the right answer? What are you looking for?
What do I see?
It took 10 minutes to get to.
Hold on.
Hold on a second, Ben, because this always happens. So just for clarity's purpose, just so I understand. So you want 1 and 2 word answers in a 15-minute radio segment?
No, but we said at what picture you're like, I think there's like an abstract of a question, like what is going on?
Yeah, I'm getting to the point. I'm explaining why I think how I think. Sorry.
What do I see? I see business casual. I see a bunch of penny loafers. I see a bunch of slacks. I see a bunch of.
You have to get it right. No, you have to answer in one word. One word.
But it's actually painting a picture.
I see. Oh my God! I see a bunch of guys named Stan, and Bill. A guy named Ralph. Saying, man, remember back in '89 when remember back when there wasn't no TV? Remember when TV went off? Man, look at us now, man. We used to get kicked out of committees. Now we're a part of the selection committee. I see a bunch of guys walking in talking trash, pointing to the saying, you just wish. No, you wish you was in here. And somebody goes, where's Baylor? It's in California, Texas, right? That's what I see. I see a bunch. Listen, I see a bunch of guys. I see a bunch of guys that saying they can't agree on. What are they gonna eat for lunch? And somebody says, "Hey, man, when you talk about the G5, people like this. Yeah, man, that's Tom Cruise. I heard about no, that's Top Gun, sir. We're not talking about that. I'm just saying. So this is what I see. I see Kevin in 20 years. Kevin in 25 years. You know what I'm saying? Because somebody come in there and say, hey, man, what you got on? And he stick his leg up, show off the tubes, show off the hairy legs, and the brand new New Balances, fresh out the box, and he says, quote, my wife said, she wanted me to dress nice. Yeah, well, what about the pleats? I mean, that's what I got a problem with. So I see a bunch of members only jackets, in there. Just, a bunch of you had to have been there to get this that day. Type of tie that day.
Ben's not far off from my picture. When I hear selection committee, I see faceless suits. So like just a body wearing a shirt and tie. That's it. Like it doesn't matter. College basketball selection, like they're not guys wearing like gym shorts. No, it's the guy in the suit. I don't even have a face with it. It's just a suit.
No. I see one young guy in there, like I see a 30-something-year-old in like Christian, and Christian saying, "Listen,
yeah, just
Christian
like
saying,
that.
I'm really happy to be here." And they go, "Young man, don't call me young man. I have a name tag and I have it right there in front."
There you go. If you're about to watch on it, is that up now? That's exactly what it is. That right there. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, that's the whole entirety of the college football.
No, people that wear suits to go absolutely nowhere, you can't trust those type of people. Like, why would you wear a suit when there wasn't a dress code? I mean, I want to look nice. To go nowhere? I mean, we're eating takeout. I mean, get out of here with that nonsense.
All right, moving along to take 3. Apparently, Golden Corral is trending on Twitter today. I don't know if you saw this, but a grandparent apparently texted their grandchild 9 times in a row, are we going to Golden Corral? And that started trending. First off, you can't Why does Grandma really want to go to Golden Corral that bad? But what is your strategy though for hitting the buffet?
Eat.
All right, Ben. Hey, that was the best answer we've had all day. Go ahead. BJ.
Oh well, I mean, you know, a young, I ain't gonna lie, a young Ben. I'm going straight for the pizza when I was young. I mean, we used to go to Corral growing up. I'm going straight for the pizza. This when I was young. Hold on. But as I've gotten older and wiser, listen, the first plate gonna be my big plate. I mean, people gonna say, "Hey man, you know you can get another plate." No, I'm trying to load it up. Listen, man, I need something dead and deep fried. I need it fried and crispy. I need something cheesy. I need my greens, aka either some greens or some cabbage. Give me some of them with them yeast rolls. They be sitting there all buttery, you know. And then I'm just keep adding some, maybe some fried okra to go along with the fried chicken or the fried fish. And I'm just putting all, you know, my toppings on the top. I got tartar sauce, kind of. Sorry, Cody, my food touches. I'm eating it all right, and then. But then I might get me, you know, I might go over there by the steak guy. The reason why I'm only getting steak because the guy, he be sharp with his knife, all that stuff. We're gonna cut me a slice. Then you looking at me like that. Then the second plate, I'm gonna be fake. I'm gonna get a salad, not really. And then I'm gonna try to get that second plate real good, Kevin. This is what I do. Then I got to go to that soft serve. I'm trying to tell you right now, get out of my way. It starts with a cookie at the bottom. Then you put the soft serve on the top. Then you put another cookie. Then you get some fudge, and you just let it sit. Make people think, hey, man, you don't want that? Touch it, and you're going to pull back a nub. I'm telling you, I'm going to go into a sweet coma at the end. But the first plate is always, you know, show people I do this for real, a.k.a. I paid for this meal. When I got my children with me, I got to watch them. I'm like, when I say you can have mashed potatoes, I don't mean the whole plate. Go get something else. But, yeah, give me some protein, give me some type of lean meat, and Kevin, but that dead and deep fried, because I'm telling you, it's too much stuff to go with.
Ben had the 3 Ds covered: dead, deep fried, dessert. There for the yes. No, but I will say there is a strategy. I agree with Ben. Big plate, first plate. That's the ultimate strat. No, it is. But to that end, you can't cross cuisines either. So it's like when I go, it's like, hey, you can have your. Yeah, I usually get like a seafood plate. No. You go back second round, it's your Italian plate. The next round is like, now I'm back to the country cooking. The third round, no, you don't cross cuisine. You can't go out there and say, I want some country fried steak with spaghetti on the side.
Yeah, you can.
No, you don't do that.
The popcorn
you don't do that. No.
I
fried steak with gravy on it is chicken.
No. Because this is the thing. They don't really. No. The thing about Golden Corral that we don't talk about enough. Sometimes the fried chicken be in the right spot, but the fried fish, it may be over there by the salad bar. Like, sir, who's putting this together? How y'all got to put it together so I can see it? But I'm gonna try to taste almost everything in there if I can, because I'm trying to get right. I'm trying to walk out that thing full.
Final question is, because this is very important when you go to the buffet, and I'll go around the room. Do you do a pregame lap to check and see what all is on there, or you just grab a plate and go?
Oh no! Yeah, I do.
You do the pregame service?
Well,
you just go straight forward.
Mine is fake because I do it because once again, when I got my children with me, I got to be like, no, because like they put stuff on the plate, looking at me, no, put more of that. Go get you some meat, and then I'm looking like, wait a minute, it's always wait a minute, y'all added this, and yeah, man, you know we had that, like. Y'all, wait a minute, y'all got dirty rice and regular rice and brown rice up in here. So to me, I got to see what they've added, and unfortunately, you know, the guy over there at the salad bar, like, yeah, man, we got fresh, sir.
We got a pregame.
We don't care about no fresh food is for children.
I always take the pregame lap just to see what they got, so you can strategize while you're waiting in line. It's like, oh, I got
the chocolate fountain is a beautiful thing, man. That chocolate fountain is beautiful, man. It is.
BJ, you taking a pregame lap, or you diving right in? Apparently, I'm the only one that does that.
No.
BJ's last 2 takes have arguably been his best 2 takes. We'll come back. We've got more to come. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad you are with us. Come Monday, it'll be all right with the college football playoff committee. They're going to get a proposal put forth to them. A lot of folks expect it to be brought forth that it's going to be approved, a 12-team college football playoff that would potentially go into effect in 2023. 6 highest ranked conference champions. Let me say that again, 6 highest ranked conference champions, not the Power 5 plus 1, but the 6 highest ranked conference champions will get an auto bid, and then you will have other at-large bids on top of that as well. So you look at this, obviously this is a game changer. I know a lot of folks look at it and say, could we be going from 4 to 8? Would we do 4 to 6 and just do a couple buys? I'm really surprised, Ben, that we were looking at 4 and the immediate recommendation jump is to 12, but I'm here for it, quite frankly. What do you feel like is, let's just start with what's good about it, because I know there's people that feel all different kind of ways about it. What's the best part of a 12-team playoff as you see it?
That college football is not college football, regardless of what league you're in, P5 or G5. Now, I know, Kevin, we haven't, and right now, the best part about it, Kevin, is perception and reality might be a lot closer. Because, the perception is always driven college football, right? It's always been, the love of the game. These guys really getting recruited. These guys can really go out there, have a chance to compete for championships. Well, what kind of championships? Conference championships or national championships? Because everybody get a chance to compete for a championship in their conference, but that's about it. So now you get to go from a bowl game to a the college football playoff berth. So for me, the best part about it is, just like you can play basketball anywhere, baseball anywhere, run track anywhere, because it doesn't matter, because you get a chance to potentially, win it all. Now, you got a chance to have, number one, add more guys to the party. So whenever the party has, RSVPs that you didn't know went out, Kevin, you like, how the hell they getting here, man? They got invited. That's, to me, is the best part. Whenever reality and perception can kind of, intertwine, that's always the best part.
I agree. I think the fact that we could get more teams in, because in the last little stretch of years, Alabama's been there, Clemson's been there. We've seen a handful of teams rotate in. 6 through 12 changes more than people think it does in college football. So I just think you get a wider swath of teams from which to choose from. I don't believe it kills the regular season. And if anything, I think it enhances a regular season in which more teams have things for which to play. To me, that is the best part of it all, is that you could have more teams get an opportunity to get in there. And I knew this was coming, not 12. I knew expansion was coming because, again, even going to 12 is about what? It's about money, period. Yep. But, I mean, you have 5 power conferences, 5 other G5 conferences, as they call them, and only 4 slots. The Power 5s weren't going to sit around and say, I'm willing to not get my check every year, especially when it's been the Pac-12, I think now 3 years in a row, hasn't made the Final Four. So you knew that was going to happen just from a pure money standpoint. But I'm excited, as you said, it opens it up to more teams. What are you most skeptical of? And again, we can't go in it with all rosy glasses. What are you most skeptical of in terms of this 12-team playoff?
We still don't know how these committees vote. See, I've always that to me, because think about it, Kevin. When it comes to, let me say this: what I'm really most skeptical of. Hey, name and image likeness is coming July 1st. Hey, man, it's 2023. So now we got to, it's coming, but it's out there, which means a lot of funny business can go on between then and then when you talk about how teams get it. Because like you said, Kevin, it's all about the language, right? It's all about the top 6 teams to get automatic bids, and then the next 6. Well, that next 6 could be very, very, wait a minute. See that little fine print at the end of a commercial that you didn't read? No, man, they said I get this car for $3,500. No. So for me, I just think that I'm skeptical because I got to see it, Kevin. Like, think about it. We're trusting the NCAA to do the right thing when it comes to G5, because we ain't talking about P5s. This is about the G5 getting a fair opportunity like the P5 does. Because when they talk about the SEC, they don't mind. They ain't talking about Vanderbilt. They ain't talking about Arkansas. They're talking about the teams that can get in. So for me, I'm skeptical of the timeline because it is 2 years away. And I just want to and unfortunately, until I see it, Kevin, it's a great concept, but you got to, it doesn't have any meat to it though.
Yeah, I think the part I'm most skeptical of is kind of not necessarily that what you were talking about, but about the committee in that, not because we don't know who some of them are voting for, because some of them make their vote public, but okay, if we know the top 12 get in, well, do G5 schools magically start being ranked 13 and 14? And because we're still dealing, I mean, and again, I get it. I'm not a fan of a computer determining it. I'm not. So let me go back and say it. But I am willing to at least concede there's a human element to it. And how do you kind of consistently make your polls? I mean, and again, because we've seen it from time to time. College Football Playoff Committee comes out. Week 1, oh, we have Baylor in there. Week 2, nothing has changed. Baylor's now number 5. What happened? Same thing I think could happen with a Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina, first week, the College Football Playoff poll comes out. Well, they're 12. Next week, they're 13. We get closer and closer to that final poll to determine the field, and they're still 13. Or BYU or Boise State or whomever it's going to be. Do you have to have sex appeal? And I say that in terms of people watching, people wanting to follow you, people wanting to show up, buy tickets, spend money. Is sex appeal going to keep you out of the top 12?
Probably.
So that's the part that I think I am skeptical of when we are talking college football with this playoff. When you look at all the arguments, the what ifs, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? What is your kind of favorite what if that you've heard about going to a 12-team playoff? Because there's a lot of them, obviously.
What if the P5 conferences aren't better than the G5 conferences? Like, see, the thing about it is Kevin, like you said, if the SEC is what it is, it shouldn't be a bunch of 12-0 teams, 11-0 teams. They should be beating up on each other, right? It should be 8-4s, 9-3s. But what if the bottom half of a G5 conference is better than the bottom half of a P5 conference, which means that you're going to have teams with better records than the G5. So now we compare. It's my 9-3, your 9-3. But who did I play? So my what if is, what if Conference USA, the Sun Belt, is just as good top to bottom. We looking at their conference top as a P5, but because the P5 gets the ink in the paper and they get the exposure, we just, Arizona. So to me, that's my biggest what if is what if at the end of the year, Kevin, we know about the Sun Belt and the SoCon. The world doesn't, and rightfully so. What if at the end of the year, App, Louisiana, Coastal Carolina, Georgia Southern just happens to be better than the ACC? Yes, you got Clemson. North Carolina got Sam Howell. Miami had De'Aaron King. What happens when the ACC'd itself, and next thing you know, North Carolina still got in because, like you say, Sam Howell's sexy, right? I just think that my biggest what if has always been it's just like what Adrian Peterson said. We all run the same, we all live the same, we just play at different schools, right? So I just think that my biggest what if has always been: are you gonna really? Is the eye test gonna be enough? Or here comes the nonsense. Here comes the quote intangibles, things you cannot coach and see. The smidget below 6'5". Yeah. That's my biggest what if. Has always been that, Tony.
The what if game with playoff scenarios has always been teams assuming records and guessing records. Like, well, what happens if so and so 6-5 and they win their conference? They go, you're just like, okay, well, you're talking about one time that could potentially happen out of 8-9 years. Or people say, well, what happens if Georgia's really good and they lose it? Why are we assuming wins and losses? It is possible for Georgia. Hey, it's even possible for Nick Saban to potentially have a bad year. It doesn't seem likely, but it is possible that they would have a season where it's not good enough to get them into playoff. I look at it, and when these things first come out, it's always, well, Alabama and Clemson are going to be there every single year. Well, no, they're not. No,
exactly.
they're not. I mean, it's impetus on other schools to get better as well. So I don't think it's just, hey, it's Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. They're just, got their birthright into the playoff. No, I don't. I mean, look, there are 9 chances, or Big Ten, I think there's 10 conference games. There are 10 chances, or 9 conference games. There are 9 chances for Big Ten teams to knock them off and get better and do that. And if they do that and they have, a solid season, they're probably going to have a great chance of getting into the playoffs. So I think I hate doing the what if series. What happens if Alabama goes 10-2 and then they lose in a championship game? And this, that was the what ifs I always got when I was big on conference champions. I'm like, why did they lose in the conference championship game? Well, I mean, no, they had an opportunity to go out and do that. So I always like the what ifs where we're guessing records and playing scenarios of assuming wins and losses. That always gets me when it comes to that. Bottom line, though, this appears like it's going to happen. Who's the big winner at the end of the day in all of this? Is it teams, players, fans? I mean, I think there's a case to be made that for all the naysayers, like, oh, we're ruining college football because every game doesn't matter. No, I think the fans still win in a big way here in this thing.
I think it's the have-nots. I think it's the ones, Kevin, that don't know what it's like to get the benefit of the doubt. Don't know what it's like to have somebody speaking up on their behalf that's not a part of their fan base, a part of the teams that be rooting for, a part of the people that watch them. It's always great when people who are a part of the same thing still have to watch it go on without them. So for me, it's the have-nots. Bigger than the G5, the have-nots you got a bunch of have-nots in the P5 as well. So I think that a team and a fan base that normally not only do you not know who they are, you don't even know where they located. So I think it's the have-nots, Kevin. And for those and getting past this fake love of football, you're gonna ruin. Man, get out of here with that. Ruin it how? This is my thing. If you're doing an event, Kevin, and it used to be we only had room for 4, man, it was great. And somebody goes, "Hey, Kevin, we gave you a bigger venue. Why? Because we had 8 more. We got 8 more organizations coming." You're gonna be like, "Really? Yeah, that many." I think it's great because, like you were saying, you used to these 4 over here, but these other 8, they dressed to the 9. They looking around like, "No, y'all got tickets. Come on in. Y'all got to stand there at the door. Ain't no security looking for you." So I think it's the have-nots. It's always funner when the people in the teams and the fan bases for which you really don't have no reason to look into or keep up with them. Get invited to the party. Because like I said, if they the party crashes and you the headliner, well, you should run the show. But what happens, when the coming attraction, with the previews better than the movie? Because that will happen a lot. That will happen more often than not.
Well, I think that's why the fans do win in this, because people are saying, "Oh, we can't even have close games with 4 teams." I'm sorry. If we have a 12-team playoff, I guarantee you there will be close games.
Of course.
Because guess what? Remember when everybody's saying, "Man, did y'all watch that Peach Bowl?" Yeah, it was a close game. What you watched the Peach Bowl the year before? That's a close game. What about the Sugar Bowl or what? Yeah, that was a close game. Well, guess what? Those are playoff games.
Mm-hmm.
Those are playoff games. I think we are going to see competitive football in some games that certainly matter. And I think the fans do win in all of that. We got so much more to get to here on 3 and Out. We'll hear from Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com. Coming up, we'll continue to look at the pros and the cons of this college football playoff, which is coming. It may be approved next week. Then obviously you get down to the nitty-gritty of television contracts and then working out the final details as well. But College Football Playoff Committee set to approve that 12-team scenario next week. We'll continue to break that down. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here on this Friday, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Glad you are with us. We'll chat with Matt Smith, southernpigskin.com, coming up in about 20 minutes here on the show. We'll get his thoughts on the projected 12-team college football playoff. We'll also get into some of our own pros and cons of this thing as it continues to play out. We count you up towards Braves and Marlins a little bit later tonight. Also, Hawks 76ers game 3 tonight there at the farm. No, okay. I'll quit saying it. I keep getting told.
No, you gotta listen. You work at it, and it'll.
Is it because I'm just saying it like just the farm?
No. Then when Christian stops acknowledging you saying it or not saying it is when you like when Christian don't give you no reaction. You know, at the farm.
I don't even know what that means. But anyways, we've got a look at college football just in general. We talk about the playoffs. We'll get to that again coming up in a little bit. But as we look here immediately into to 2020, you start looking at UGA and what they've brought in, looking at the schedule where obviously they get Clemson early, then a pretty favorable schedule for most of the rest of the way there for them. Is it championship or bust? And if so, is that a fair measure for Georgia in 2021, i.e., either you beat Nick Saban or you failed, which seems like an unreasonable standard, but is that where we're at now with Georgia?
Yeah, absolutely not for me. To me, to say you have to win a championship or the whole season's a failure, I wouldn't apply that to any team in college football. Not Alabama, not Clemson, not Ohio State, not Georgia, because I think that's talking about in some ways an achievement that might be beyond your control. Because think about championships, okay? Almost what? Every champion up until a couple of years ago in modern college football has had at least one loss, has had a loss. And when you have a loss, you open yourselves up to resume interpretation via the committee or the computer rankings or whatever we have. And then once you get into a playoff like we have now, it's going to be even more of a case moving forward. You're talking about matchups that are unique. You're talking about the duration of 15, 16, 17 games. So no, I don't think that's fair because you can have one bad hour in a season of 15 games and it costs you a championship. I think in college football, even for programs that are preseason top 5 like Georgia, you can go 12-1, 13-1 and still have a great season. You can win an SEC championship, not win a national championship and still have a great season. You can win a Sugar Bowl or an Orange Bowl, still have a great season. I think that's an unfair barometer. And for Georgia this season, Ben, I think that's especially true because if you look at the teams that are considered preseason national champs in that discussion, right, that are considered preseason contenders, they don't have the schedule Georgia does. Georgia's going to have to beat either one of Clemson or Alabama to even get into the playoffs, and then in all likelihood have to beat one of those teams again to win the national championship. Clemson can lose to Georgia and still get in. Okay, Ohio State doesn't have to play Clemson, Alabama. Oklahoma doesn't have to play Clemson, Alabama. Notre Dame doesn't have to play Clemson, Alabama. Georgia plays the 2 best teams in the country before, and we're projecting, we assume Alabama will be there at the end of the year, but Georgia's going to have Clemson, Florida, Auburn, and very likely Alabama. And then that gives them the right of getting into the 4-team tournament to play some of those teams again. No, you can absolutely still have a great season, a successful season without winning a national championship.
Yeah, there are great seasons. There are successful seasons, but we're talking about a team in Georgia to where the 2 biggest transfers, and when we talk about the transfer portal, came to the University of Georgia. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying championship or bust because that's what you building at the University of Georgia. When people outside of Athens starts looking at you the same way in which you view yourself, I think that's a good thing. Kirby Smart will want nothing less. University of Georgia football players will want nothing less. Whenever you start settling for something better than, something other than, what you could possibly be, you are selling yourself short. I heard Stephen A. Smith say this: fair is a place where you judge pigs. Who cares? This is Georgia. So if they don't do it, what they gonna keep on saying? Oh, well, listen, we can have a great season if. No, this is it. Your consolation prize in the SEC. You got to beat Alabama. When no one, LSU had to do it, and they in the SEC West had to do it. And I think when you start asking yourself what separates the good from the great, it's stuff like this. The barometer is set. You want to win it all. It doesn't matter that you haven't done it. It doesn't matter that we haven't seen it. They want to say, "Do we going to be the team that starts it?" And then they just keep going. So for me, BJ, I think it's right there. When you start talking about what separates good from greatness, I don't even talk about being good because I want to be great. The only way you're gonna get there is you stop saying we had great successful seasons if you did not, complete the task.
I think that's just indication of the level as Kirby Smart has brought Georgia, right? I mean, it is we have a team good enough to win the national championship. That should be our expectation. And again, I think there is some nuance in that, BJ, where you could say if we don't meet that, it was still a good season. But the expectation is we want to go out and we have a good enough team to compete for a national championship. And that's where you get the championship or bust, where it's like, look, everything else will be kind of disappointed as far as team goals are concerned. We want to play for a championship and go win it. If we play in the Sugar Bowl or we play in the Peach Bowl again, that's not where we want to be. That can be labeled disappointing. So
but that's a different question than is it championship or bust?
We'll continue to talk about this and more. 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. It's 3 and Out on this Friday. Glad you're with us, Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Matt Smith going to join us top of the final hour of the show, asking about the college football playoff, which is coming. I guess full disclosure, I'll let Matt put it out there as well, but he's not a fan of the expansion. I think he wants to see it small and concise, and in his words, let the regular season mean as much as possible. So we'll talk to him about that. Looking forward to that conversation as, again, we get ready to embrace the new world here in a couple of years of a 12-team playoff.
Yeah, and there are kind of a wide-ranging response of opinions, right? I've seen everything from people that are like, oh, I've been waiting for this forever, to it's going to completely ruin the regular season. So I think everybody's still trying to process this. Here's my question, because we're still a couple of years away at the very least from this being a reality. I think there's a little bit of shock and awe from people just being surprised at how quickly this has come to fruition, and the fact that it is a 12-team playoff, apparently not an 8-team playoff or some other variation. I wonder if the people who are against the playoff now, like in the first few days of reaction, will still feel the same way a couple of years down the line.
I expect people to be, up in arms about it, because everybody starts making it theirs, right? They're going to mess up my, rich tradition of college football. No, this makes it better. This makes it so that you got to pay attention to everybody, not just get fixated on the teams you root for the conferences you root for. And I think that's great for anything. Why do we watch the NCAA tournament? To see the upsets, right? That's why you're really watching it. It's probably not. And Kevin, does this make a way for a Cinderella? Because now you don't really have Cinderellas in football. Does this make a way for that? I want people to be mad. I want people to be like, oh, this is going to make football worse. No. I go back to 2008. There's no way App State is going to beat Michigan. Uh-oh. They did beat them. That's up one game, not named Alabama, not named Clemson. Anything can happen. So I like it. I think it's a step in the right direction, because I've always respected football players first, the college platform second, because I played with some of the greatest players, in my lifetime that didn't go P5. Just because you ain't going P5 don't mean you ain't got P5 talent. You just went G5. Well, I mean, and people need to get past that.
I mean, my whole thing of this is the intrigue of what happens when, I would say not even a G5 school. What happens when an Iowa State comes in and wins in the first round, or an Indiana, and you go, come on. Well, no, I mean, under the 12-team format, if we had it, Iowa State and Indiana would both have been in the playoffs last year. So what happens when they win? Are they? And I think it's kind of look at under the realm of college basketball. Is Indiana going to win the national championship in football? The odds are probably not there. But if they win a round or two, it certainly gets very interesting, very quick, and it's a matter of who they knocked out and who got sent home early. I think that's what the fun of a playoff is. Sometimes the best team in a tight spot doesn't always win. And I think that is what makes playoffs fun, is you have to show up in a playoff every single game and get it done, or you will get sent home. And I'm looking forward to that when we get to a 12-team playoff of who is that first team that kind of upsets the apple cart. Oh, the G5 schools can't win. Well, what happens when they win a game?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's that. And again, I think when people say that, BJ, and we hear you and me and Ben and guys saying, well, hey, maybe there's a team out there capable of winning. All of a sudden, people will conflate that argument. It's like, oh, so you think they're good enough to win the national championship? No, not necessarily. But are they good enough to win a game right now? Yes. Let them be in there 2 or 3 years in a row. And I think you might have a smaller version of Gonzaga basketball where they're able to make a deep run and a deeper run. So to me, that'll be more fun how it evolves, not just, hey, let's look at the first year and make a blanket statement about how it's going to go.
I absolutely, for one, think you will see surprising results, especially early. Now, if college football, looks in a couple of years like it does now, it may be Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, maybe Georgia, Oklahoma, kind of as the preseason favorites every year. And I don't think that would stun anybody. But do I think Cincinnati is going to get in and win? Yes. Do I think Coastal Carolina is going to get in and win? Yes. In this format that has been, I think Christian put it out on social media a couple of days ago. You've seen some other outlets, kind of what last season would have looked like with this new model. Do I think Coastal Carolina, theoretically, depending upon the matchup, could have won and advanced? Absolutely. Same for Cincinnati. Again, look at Cincinnati, Georgia last year. I mean, look at that game, which came down to a last-second field goal, and then Georgia got the safety, obviously. But I think people are going to be surprised at just how much parity there is. Maybe not at the tip top with Alabama and Clemson, but after that.
All I know is this is going to change the lifeblood of every college football program because we know that's always recruiting. This is going to boost recruiting for every program now because you do not have to go. It's always you got to go to a certain school to get a certain result. That's not true with something like this. Now Kevin, we still 2 years away, but it just makes it better. Everybody always talking about you got to go this school. Vanderbilt ain't trying to get out of the SEC. They know they're going to get the break speed off them because they wanted the SEC money, that SEC exposure. Now, we talk about G5, I think it's a great step in the right direction for those guys. So, yes, BJ and Kevin, you're going to have skepticism. You're always going to have that, but that's how you know you're trending in the right direction.
We'll get the other side of the coin, no doubt, when Matt Smith joins us. He'll join us when we come back from SouthernPigskin.com. We'll get his thoughts on why he's not necessarily in favor of a 12-team playoff at the end of the day. So looking forward to chatting with Matt about that. He'll join us on the flip side as we start the final hour of the program. We'll get into some pros and cons after we talk with Matt about what this could possibly mean for college football. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We are streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Yeah. It's 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. Final hour of 3 and Out. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Again, tomorrow, or next week, I should say, the College Football Playoff Committee set to approve a 12-game playoff format. Obviously, there's more nuts and bolts to be ironed out on top of that, but set to happen next week. Looking ahead to 2023 on enactment. Our next guest has some thoughts on that as he joins us, southernpigskin.com. A great friend of the show, Matt Smith, joins us. Matt, welcome. How are you, man?
I'm okay. Little down yesterday hearing that news. It was a fight I knew I was going to lose. I thought I could, maybe go 11 rounds, get a split decision. Instead, I think I got TKO'd in round 4. That was faster than I thought and more severe than I thought. But on we go.
No, Matt. I understand that you and I are obviously on different sides of this formula. As far as that, I will readily admit I didn't see it going 4-12 like that. I thought maybe it was 8. Maybe even they tried to slide in a 6-teamer just to appease some folks. But I think it's a huge jump from 4-12. Just start there. What diametrically are you opposed to off the jump going to a 12-team playoff?
I do not want the Saturdays that were so sacred in this sport for most of my life and that have more meaning than any regular season game in any other sport to go away. And I feel like we're losing that. Will there be more games with significance for playoff berth? Yeah, probably. Maybe 6-2 Iowa at 6-2 Wisconsin on November 7th is now a playoff elimination game. That doesn't necessarily interest me because the fact that Iowa is 6-2 means maybe they lost to Iowa State and they got killed by Penn State, and they've clearly proven in the first 2 months that they have no business competing for a national title. Yet we're going to give them that opportunity if they win 9 or 10 games. So that's kind of what bugs me. I love the 2019 LSU Alabama type games where, even with 4 teams, LSU won. They felt pretty good. Alabama wasn't completely done, but they knew they probably needed to take care of business the rest of the way, get some help from teams around the country. I think Utah was kind of in it back then. They would have needed them to lose. Of course, they lost the Iron Bowl, and it was a moot point at that time. But, I want that pain. I want that frustration when a good team loses a big game like that. And I just don't think those game of the century type moments are going to happen anymore because they just don't have the stakes. So that's probably my biggest issue with it is just the uniqueness of college football where we have so many of our memorable moments in the sport come during the regular season. You can't say that about any other sport. We've had some great national championship games as well. They've been fun. Texas USC was amazing. Auburn, Florida State, a couple of the Alabama Clemson games, sure. But we have the game of the century moments, whether it's Catholics versus convicts, whether it's a couple LSU Alabama games from last decade that were 1 versus 2, Nebraska, Oklahoma. Those stakes just aren't going to be there anymore with 12 teams, and to me, that's sad.
And Matt, I do understand that, the idea of kind of the Power 5 teams that maybe have a couple of losses playing a game that otherwise wouldn't have national implications to suddenly have national implications where maybe you can make an argument they're not championship good. But I guess my question to you would be, what about games like Coastal Carolina, BYU last year, where you had 2 top 10 undefeated teams, one of the games of the year in college football, and it really ultimately didn't have an impact on the national picture because one of the things that I like about the playoff is that there is now a legitimate pathway forward, at least a chance for every team that is a Division I FBS football program. And in the past, that has not been the case. Was there a way for the group of 5, whether a Boise State, a Central Florida, a Coastal Carolina, a Cincinnati, without something like this happening?
Pretty unlikely. I mean, I will give you that. Yeah, it was certainly a great day for the G5. I do like the fact that rather than the 5 Power 5 champions and the highest group of 5 champion, I do like they did just the top 6. That means at least one group of 5 team would get in and potentially 2. It avoids a situation like if, God forbid, that Pittsburgh team from a couple of years ago had upset Clemson. They still wouldn't have gotten it in because there would have been probably 2 group of 5 champions ranked ahead of them, UCF, and I can't even think of another one, but likely Pitt would not have qualified at 8-5 or whatever just because they had one great day and played in the worst division in the Power 5. So I thought that was a savvy move. But yeah, I made the case all off season. I think Cincinnati does have a shot this year, even with 4 teams. Part of that is because they had the schedule with 2 road games against top 15 teams against Indiana and Notre Dame. If they have decent seasons and Cincinnati would beat them, I think they got a great shot to be in the top 4. But it takes kind of the perfect schedule. It probably does take a good season the previous year. So yeah, I mean, as we saw, I know all the 2020 what if scenarios had Coastal Carolina in. That annoyed me yesterday because the Pac-12 didn't even try to play. So obviously their champion had played like 4 games and didn't even win their division. So, in the real world, that probably wouldn't have happened. There would only have been Cincinnati in. But yeah, I mean, a great day for the G5. It does give those teams a shot. Maybe they have one chance to win a game, which would probably be the biggest win in school history. Obviously never going to, win 4 straight and win a national title or anything like that. But yeah, certainly one of the big winners yesterday was a team like Coastal or Lafayette. Certainly Cincinnati as well, that, might get their one shot on a big stage with stakes rather than playing against Georgia with 5 or 6 starters not playing like we had last year in the Peach Bowl. So, not going to go far in these tournaments, but they will get a swing at the apple. And yes, technically, I think you could argue all 130 teams would have a shot at the title when the season starts. And to say that's the case right now, I can't do that.
And man, the one thing I get from this 12 teams, particularly the 12 team playoff that 2 years from now is how much of a focus does it place on the bottom half of every single conference? Like, every conference is top heavy. So you talk about SEC, you're not talking about the bottom half, you talk about the upper echelon of these teams. Then what happens when we realize that maybe some of these G5 conferences might be better than some of these P5 conferences?
Yeah, I think that's possible. And, maybe we'll get to that point. I'd like to see, one of the reasons I prefer 8 conference games for most teams is I want to see more games like that. Obviously, it's tough for some of these upper tier G5 teams to get those games. We've known the problems UCF has had with getting some scheduled games. Memphis, it's unlikely to, schedule a big SEC team. They're just going to get Ole Miss and Mississippi State. You're probably never going to get Alabama or Georgia to take on a group of 5 team like Memphis. They want a guaranteed win. And, that's not necessarily the case if you catch one of those teams on a hot day. So yeah, I think that's possible. If we're seeing the Pac-12, they'll get most likely an auto bid now, even though it's not going to technically be an auto bid. There's only been one instance so far where we had a group of 5 champion finish ahead of a Power 5 champion. That was UCF, was one spot ahead of Washington back in 2018. So if they actually are getting in and pulling a first round upset on the road and the Pac-12 champion that's finishing 10-11, they go the first 3-4 years without winning a game. Yeah, that's great news for the parity in the sport and for conferences like the AAC in the Mountain West to say, hey, we can compete with the big boys just because the Pac-12 was once great and USC is one of the great brands in the sport. They don't really they're not up to the level of the SEC and the Big Ten of late, and we think we're right on par with them, and we deserve that to show in the rankings. So yeah, that could be a great case for that, Ben.
Matt, I know we started off talking about, losing some significance of games, but might actually one of the byproducts of that we get better college football, period. I mean, I could make the case where for as much as everybody clamored for the G5, is there now more impetus for ACC and SEC schools to schedule each other non-conference to up their G quotient, if you will, on strength of schedule? If at the end, hey, I need to win my conference, I can get an auto bid potentially, but my strength of schedule will keep me up there as well. Is there a potential we actually see better college football scheduling if there is a little bit of leeway? I.e., look, if I'm Alabama, I can go out and try to schedule a Michigan or somebody in the regular season that if I slip up, it's not going to cost me everything amongst my fans, but it's better than playing Southwest Missouri State 72-0.
Sure. That one's tough for me, Kevin, I guess partially because so much of scheduling is dictated by finances. We know that. We've seen how the Pac-12 schedules versus the SEC. It's very different when you're in a league where you can still get 80 to 90,000 people in to play Georgia State. Pac-12 can't do that. The other thing is with scheduling being done so far out, if they're going to say, all right, we've seen how strength of schedule has been weighted in the first 2 years, our next open date for a potential another Power 5 game is 7 years down the road. And, we change the format every 6 years or so. So is that even going to be worth doing? Saying, all right, we're going to take these results We think we need to beef up our schedule. We're going to add these games in 6 years. Well, what the heck is the format, the landscape going to look like 6 or 7 years down the road? So it's hard for me to say that there's going to be any direct impact on strength of schedule. We're seeing a lot of Power 5 teams go to 10 games. I think that's probably where we'll ultimately land, where you're playing, probably still get your 7 home games with your 2 bye games, and then you'll have two marquee non-conference games. I think we'll be pretty close to the norm here by the end of the 2020s. So I think that'll be good for the sport, but I'm not going to say the playoff expansion is going to be the cause for that happening. That's hard for me to say, just given the other aspects that go into the complexity of college football scheduling.
Matt, is one of the byproducts of this going to be at least 3 SEC teams, maybe 4 in there every year?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think Greg Sankey was on the 4-person working task force, whatever fancy name the NCAA does for their committees. But yeah, I think there would have been 4 last year, certainly 4. I know in 2018, not sure about 2019, but definitely in 2018 with Alabama and Georgia and Florida and LSU all being top 10 teams. So yeah, I think that's why they wanted to preserve the number of at-large teams, and why I think 8 ultimately failed. Was you were decreasing the number of at-large teams. Obviously, they were all at-large in the current format with 4. If you go to 8, it's either going to be 2 or 3, depending on if you do give the G5 spot a guarantee. So now that's expanded from 4 to 6 under 12, and I think that was very important for the SEC. Obviously, very important for Notre Dame. Jack Swarbrick, also one of the 4 members on the committee, the athletic director at Notre Dame. So they're preserving now. They have 6 of 12 spots available to them, where if it had been 5 automatic qualifiers and 1 group of 5, Notre Dame would have only had 2 spots of 8. So 50% versus 25%, that works out well for Notre Dame. That's why they made some sacrifices, like not being able to get a bye, to be able to have greater access. So you can see the fingerprints of the couple guys leading the working task force, absolutely. But yeah, if you're now having 6 at-large spots, I say there's a pretty decent chance half of those 6 will go to the SEC if they continue to perform and have good non-conference seasons like we saw back in 2019 when you had LSU beating Texas and Auburn beating Oregon and Georgia beating Notre Dame. You get those wins. Your 9-3 team probably has a great shot of finishing in the top 12, and you have 33% of the playoff, a chance to maybe get 3 of the top 4 as the bracket progresses, and that'll make a lot of fans really angry in Columbus and Austin and Los Angeles.
And Matt, I did want to ask a follow-up about Notre Dame. I know you're a Notre Dame alum. Even though there are 6 at-large bids, would Notre Dame not have access to an additional bid via the conference championship route if they were to join a conference? Do you think this has any impact on that possibility at all?
I don't think so. I think and the way Jack Swarbrick explained it yesterday was, hey, we're off on December 5th. I know we can't get a bye now, but we'll put ourselves at risk in that first round. Alabama and Oklahoma are putting themselves at risk in the conference championship game of losing and falling out of the top 4. So while we're sitting around, studying for finals, or doing whatever those kids do on championship Saturday when they're not playing at Notre Dame, they'll take that risk the next weekend, even though, the teams ranked behind and potentially could get the bye, but presumably they'd have played obviously on championship Saturday to win their conference and earn that bye. So that's the way he explained it. It kind of made sense. They'd still go into the quarterfinal round if they make it, having played 13 games like everyone else. The old Notre Dame only has 12 games instead of 13 every year. Debates that have come up when they've been playoff contenders in the past, that would go away now, obviously. So I think that was kind of where they settled. They'll get enough access. Obviously, they still want to keep their independence. I don't see that changing anytime soon. And again, now having 50% of the bids available to them, which is more than they would have had, I think was a legit concern if they did go to 6 conference champions of 8 teams in a playoff. That would, I think that's a bigger deal for Notre Dame's access. But going to 12, I think they're content with where they are. Independence is obviously a big deal, and they'll sacrifice having to play an extra game because they know they're going to have that conference championship Saturday as their kind of de facto bye.
And man, how much does this go into strategy though? Like, I understand that when you're certain teams, you want to, if you're Alabama's the easy example. If Alabama's playing, Cincinnati, if Alabama's playing Memphis, if Alabama's playing Georgia Southern, how much do they not want to beat them as bad as they could? Because I wanted to look competitive if and when Georgia Southern goes on, and does well in their conference, it's almost like, you looking out for an out-of-conference team that could potentially look good for you down the line. I'm not saying that's what it's going to be, but we know Alabama can beat teams by 50, but they're like, no, let's not beat them as bad as it look as we can, because we got to kind of keep up with who we playing now more than ever.
Yeah, I think that's fair. We've had plenty of blowouts in the current playoff system, but those are worthy teams, brand names that are getting killed, and there's no sympathy. But if you do see one of those teams sneak into that number 12 spot, and they're playing an Ohio State or Alabama who's number 5 that year, and it's a 40-point game in the third quarter, and you're seeing the backups go in immediately. Usually in these semifinals, they're going to keep the foot on the gas. Again, there's no sympathy for an Oklahoma or a Notre Dame that's getting blown out. But there might be in the case of if it's, a Lafayette or a Memphis or a 12 seed that just happened to sneak in as that 6th conference champion. And that's probably what's going to happen. So, yeah, that'd be a really bad look for the playoff. They want to avoid that. They want good games. I think one of the reasons they've gone the expansion route is just how bad the semifinals were. And even if it is 2 teams who probably aren't going to make it through the bracket to the national championship game, playing in a good 8-9 game, if it's like Georgia Cincinnati last year, that's what they want, except with all of Georgia's roster playing and actually having some stakes. So I think that's the point of this. But, yeah, that's an interesting look, and I think that'd be, certainly not what they're going for, but certainly possible, given you could have a really good team at number 5, or, number 1 Notre Dame could be number 5 because they can't get a bye, and maybe they get that opportunity to pound some team. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But that's an interesting thought for sure.
Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com, our guest here on 3 and Out. Matt, always a pleasure. Thanks so much.
You bet, guys. Talk to you later.
We'll do. Matt Smith, SouthernPigskin.com. We'll come back. We'll debate the pros and cons of this 12-team playoff and more. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. 3 and Out on this Friday, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, also ESPNCoastal.com, and live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. And again, we just talked with Matt Smith about the college football playoff, which will be officially proposed and approved next week to a 12-team format starting in 2023. Obviously, Matt was anti-playoff, but let's look at all sides of the coin here and be fair. Let's start with the good of it. What do you think would be probably the good side, the best thing you could think of for the college football playoff going to 12 teams?
Yeah, I think it's more representative, right? You know, we've talked about this, Kevin, for years, you know, even going back to when you had your own show. When you look at the FBS, the postseason format, even with a 4-team playoff, is not representative. You've said this time and time again. You have 5 Power 5 conferences, much less, you know, the independents and the group of 5 leagues. So you knew from the beginning a 4-team playoff was not even going to make all of the Power 5 conferences happy, much less everybody else. And, you know, in college basketball, I know we've made a couple of comparisons on the show to like the NCAA tournament in college basketball. Every team that's Division I at least has a chance. It may be unlikely that a team that's not, you know, highly ranked in the preseason wins its conference tournament, gets in, pulls off upset after upset, but it's at least possible. You have a chance to compete for a championship in the division and the classification with which you are affiliated. That has clearly not been the case in college football, and not only for group of 5 programs, but I would even argue, you know, for some less heralded Power 5 programs. So I think now what you've seen is a nice hybrid and a nice blend of sort of compromise in that. And Matt Smith talked about this. You're now going to have a direct pathway for group of 5 programs. And I'm saying programs because you could have years where 2 teams get in, but you also are expanding the at-large pool. So teams that play tougher schedules, i.e. the SEC, you know, you think about the possibility of, you know, an Alabama that's undefeated beating an undefeated or a 1-loss Georgia in the SEC championship game. Well, in this scenario, Alabama will get the auto bid and Georgia would certainly still get in as a reflection of their overall resume and their overall strength of schedule. So I think this expansion with the number of slots available does a nice job of accounting for the rise of the group of 5 leagues and the Central Floridas and the Memphises and Cincinnatis and Coastal Carolinas, but it also does a good job of making sure we still account for the difficulty of playing in a league like the SEC or the Big Ten.
It's what you hear a lot when you talk about certain entities as it pertains to sports or anything that that gets the most attention. It's representation. You can't say that college football is college football when we only talking about 8 teams every year that even got a shot to even make the college football playoff. And it's hardly ever that that perception becomes reality. And I think for the G5s and like you said, BJ, lower tier, P5 teams, you get a shot now. Meaning now going into the off season, we can really say we got a shot. Now it's like going back to what Adrian Peterson said of Georgia Southern. You respecting the fact that we play football just like they do. We run and live just like they do. No longer what I do is better because of where I am, not because of what I'm actually doing. And I always enjoy when the rubber meets the road. We're not trying to act as if because he's better than him because he had 5 stars, he had 3 stars. I've never ever really got into that stuff, and I just think that BJ, something we talking about when you look at the Sun Belt and all these P5 quarterbacks that's playing G5 football now, it's because why is it they don't look at G5 as lesser than, but the people that make the rules did. Now you're looking at every team, through the same scope. Does that mean, Kevin, it's gonna be that? Because right now, It sounds good. I mean, like I said, when you go to the movies, for 2 things. For the feature presentations and the previews. Sometimes the previews are better than the movie. I hope that isn't what this is, but the pros is representation, perception become a reality, and these lower tier schools, being able to have an opportunity to get that same level of exposure, at least for a small amount of time that other teams get every single week.
Well, with everything that's good, obviously there's going to be bad. It's, no system is perfect. What would be, and I'll make you guys both play the other side here. I know we're all pretty pro playoff on the show, but I'll make you play the other side. What so far what's been proposed would be a potential downside to doing this thing?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things, and I think that's fair, Kevin. I think that's good to kind of play the other side and look at all of it. I do think, to Matt's point from the previous segment, and I don't think it's going to be a regular thing. I want to be clear. But I think there could be circumstances where individual games that in the past might have had incredible drama and a lot of consequences at play in terms of the national, scale, the national scope, there might not be as much of that. And I don't think it'll be every year, right? But in the past, there have been times where Georgia has played Florida in late October, and it's basically been an elimination game for national contention, right? And that's added to the drama. I know Georgia fans don't. I know Georgia fans don't like hearing this, but part of the brilliance of your catch, part of the the theater of your catch in 2002, was it, in the Georgia-Florida game, is that it literally kept Georgia from winning a national championship. That one play, that one game, that one moment, that 15-second play kept Georgia, that's their only loss all year, from playing for a national championship. If that same sequence were to occur moving forward, well, Georgia's still going to get into the playoff with one loss. Now, to your point, Kevin, I think most years there's not that much in terms of it's that simple and it's that dramatic to begin with. Most years it's not, if we're being honest, and there may still be some circumstances where that loss knocks you out of the playoffs. So I don't think it's a every year thing, but I think there may be circumstances that occur occasionally where under the current model, it would be a monumental game with everything on the line, and there won't be as much in a future scenario.
The cons for me is, this ends up being much ado about nothing. Like it's just lip service. Like, it sounds real good when we talking about it, but when it came time to be about it, it was a lot of P5s, and you snuck a couple of G5s in there. And another con is, if we've been devaluing, G5s for this long, we just gonna start valuing them because we got 12 teams. I find it very, very hard to believe. BJ, like I said, most people don't know about Coastal Carolina. And you know how they didn't care? Because they played BYU and no one cared. So I think that the cons for me has always been, we expect the NCAA to start looking out for the have-nots. That hasn't been their claim to fame thus far. And unless something dramatic happens, because they're gonna value the SEC, ACC, Big 10, Pac-12, Big 12, no matter what, right? Even when they're not good. So my thing is, the con is, what happens when, something I said to Matt Smith, when some of the G5 conferences are better than some of the P5s, and it doesn't matter. Like, we had a better season top to bottom as a conference than that conference. So to me, that's the con of, are they conning us right now? Yeah, we got 12, but it still look very P5-ish with these 12 teams. Yeah. No. I'm sorry. We'll put a G5 in, because BJ, you'll say Cincinnati and Coastal Carolina would have got in. Yeah, we know they would have got in, but we ain't on this committee. Because once again, the con is, the committees who make the selections, they don't tell us how they voted. They just show us who they voted for, and they get up out the way.
Well, and again, I think that is certainly a drawback. I think not figuring out, and I don't list this as a major con, because I think it'll get worked out before it ever comes to fruition. But right now, with the top 4 teams getting a bye, means they would move ahead into your more traditional bowl settings, I think, for the 4 that are left. And the previous round, you would have teams that would have the ability to have home games. And so a higher ranked team would essentially not get a home playoff game, but lower ranked teams would. I think they'll get all that figured out as far as who gets a home game and who doesn't. But I think that would be certainly a drawback. Then you get into, all the nonsense, and I'll kind of share my thoughts on it, where, again, I think and Matt said that, all the Saturdays of my youth where I got matchups. Well, he didn't quite say every game matters, and it's different. I guess you could say every Saturday, which really, to me, encompasses the fact that you're kind of a top-heavy college football consumer, where it's like, I just want my top 5 or 6 teams to play meaningful games. I don't care about the rest, which is fine if you want to just come out and say that, but don't blanket statement it with every game matters in college football, because it doesn't. We've seen Alabama make the championship and not play for the conference championship. We saw a conference championship game last year where, going into it, we said it doesn't matter what happens. They're probably still getting in. Okay, so every game doesn't matter. So that's kind of been the romanticization of college football. I just look at it and say, if I have to sacrifice in your brain that Georgia, Florida somehow doesn't mean as much because we have more teams in the playoffs, I'm fine with that because it still means a lot. Do the Yankees hate losing to the Red Sox still? I mean, they still play each other in the playoffs. They can. The rivalry is still there. You still don't want to lose to them. And again, I look at it and say, Georgia fans, Florida fans, listen to me. How many times before do you go down? This is Halloween. We're not even into November and the 1st of December. Do you go down to Jacksonville or over to Jacksonville and you lose and effectively say, well, that's it. We need Georgia to lose twice or we need Florida to lose twice. And now we'll just play it out and hope we get to, the Sugar Bowl or something. And again, that's part of the playoff is devalued bowl games as well. That's a whole nother argument. But the every game matters argument just kills me, BJ and Ben. It's one that I think is just so silly. And with more teams having a chance, more teams having a second chance, more teams playing for seeding. And again, I know he used am I going to get excited about 6-2 Iowa and 6-2 Wisconsin? You would if you thought a potential seed was on the line. If you thought one of those teams was going to get eliminated, yeah, it adds more intrigue. Whereas now, 6-2 Wisconsin, 6-2 Iowa isn't going anywhere but the Outback Bowl. That's it. And so I see nothing but upside in terms of more teams thinking they have a chance with the caveat of, hey, I may look bad at times. I still have an opportunity to go out and try to win my conference as a champion, which would get me in, despite the fact maybe I slipped up earlier in the season. I still control some of it out in front of me. And I just think anybody that says every week matters in traditional matchups, I'm sorry, the Iron Bowl is still the Iron Bowl, whether you think it has a trip to the playoff on it or not. I mean, it is. Because what if the Iron Bowl is one of you gets a bye, the other one of you has to play in 2 weeks? That means nothing. I mean, there's
I think to your point too, people miss this, and I think your phraseology is correct. Actually, this point is when the Iron Bowl features 5-3 Auburn and 5-3 Alabama, and there aren't national implications, it still matters. It's the Iron Bowl, so it's not only the stage of just it being you have to win to move forward that make those games special. If Georgia and Florida are winless, it is still Georgia and Florida in Jacksonville. And I'm kind of confusing myself with what I'm trying to say here. But more games are going to matter. You're absolutely right. More games are going to matter. Now when 2-loss Virginia Tech is playing 2-loss North Carolina in late October, that game matters. Whereas otherwise, for a lot of fans, it's just flipped through. That has an impact on the national discussion. I think what you can say is in some cases, some of the games that matter the most might matter a little bit less in some cases, but overall, way more games will matter in college football, way more.
I believe too often at times we get caught up in what isn't and what is going to be when you start talking about different things changing, right? Sometimes, why don't we just wait and see? Because we really, really don't know. Now, we do this for a living, so we looking at it from a different angle every single decade. This is what we do. The average fan, I'm sorry, you don't watch enough college football to know what you're talking about, especially when you don't know the difference between P5 and G5, especially when you don't even know every team in your conference that your team plays. I will say this is the biggest BS. It's going to ruin college football. How? Like, what exactly is happening? Is it still going to be drama? Yes. Is it still going to be nonsense? Yes. Is it still going to be head scratches? Yes. Is it still going to be upsets? Yes. It's just that instead of 4, it's 12. And the thing is, even more with the BS is it's always, a fan base is going to be saying, oh, well, we didn't get in because this and that. No, I believe these games are going to matter more, especially out of conference. Because Alabama never had to worry about an out of conference team they played because it's only boosting their resume. It's not going to boost their resume if they beat them by 70 and then that team goes on and when they come. I'm just saying it's a lot of BS always thrown out there, but that's what I'm here for. I'm always here for the BS, because think about it, Kevin. Oh, yeah, man, my team ain't even going to make it in. Who's your team quarterback? Who's your team coach? Please be quiet.
Well,
I want to hear that.
It's just like I said, my biggest thing is that we're somehow cheapening the product because we've opened up the possibility for more teams to have a vested stake. This take literally works for no other sport in America, not even in college. MLB expanded playoffs. Why? We want to quit having so many teams give up on the season at the All-Star break and sell off thinking they're not going to win. Now we've added wild card spots, which what? Adds 3 or 4 teams. Do I think I have a shot to make the wild card? I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to go. To me, it just adds, more intrigue to that. Again, I just think if you're going to come at me with every week matters, I'm sorry. And I'm used to walking out of there with the feeling that my season is over because no. Look, Alabama, Tennessee is a great rivalry. Third Saturday in October. It hasn't mattered in 15 years. I'm sorry. It hasn't. The Egg Bowl is a great rivalry. It hasn't mattered on a national stage in a long, long time. The game, for as much as we hype Ohio State, Michigan, has that mattered in a decade? No. So just, again, stop with the every week matters. Look, more teams every week does matter. And guess what? It also means if you lose this week, next week matters even more than it did this week. Because if you lose again, you're done. And so I think that is the build mode where you come to November, you want a November of who's in, who's got to finish strong, who's got to make it down the stretch. And right now, we get to November 1, and by and large, we're like, well, these two teams are going to the SEC championship game. The ACC Coastal's been a disaster. Clemson's going, they're going to win there. We've already seen Penn State, Ohio State. We've already seen, Michigan State, Ohio State. So even if Michigan beats them, it doesn't matter. They're going to go to the – no, it matters more who gets a bye, who gets in, who gets knocked out of a potential at-large bid down the stretch. I just am not for 1 second ever going to buy the every game doesn't matter now, we ruined it argument because more teams have a reason to pay attention. Like that literally contradicts itself coming down the stretch. We've got more to come here on this Friday. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Oh, man, heading into a tremendous weekend. A lot of big things happening. Braves and Marlins. Braves trying to bounce back this weekend. And the Hawks tonight, BJ and Ben, trying to win Game 3 to go back ahead in this series. Do the improbable at this point and pull off another series upset.
Hey, look, let's go. I think Atlanta should feel confident about tonight. You're at home, Kev. You mentioned it. I think you're going to have a great atmosphere, great energy. Look, you lost a game. Okay. This is still a team that won a first-round playoff series convincingly. Still a team that held, a 20-point lead for a good portion of Game 1. Still a team that has one of the best players in the league. Still a team that has been one of the hottest defensive teams in the NBA for the last couple of months. This is a team that should believe. This is a team that should play with passion, enthusiasm. I think they're gonna bring it tonight. Now we'll see how Philadelphia responds, but I think you're gonna get a good effort out of Atlanta tonight.
I think they showed a stat to where at home playoff games in the last 19-2 or something like that. Last 21 playoff games at homes or something crazy, like a crazy stat like that. But it comes back to Trae Young. I mean, averaging 25 points a game. I think averaging right at 8-9 assists a game. Just be who you are. Just let him feed off that and something. Do the Kevin Thomas mode of Embiid, but just frustrate him. Like, don't just let him go out there because this team feeds on him the same way Atlanta feeds out Trae Young. But I do think that if you can frustrate Embiid, get him off his spot, force him into some bad shots, because Embiid is not the same player when he starts getting frustrated. You got a really, really good shot, because if the best player on whatever team, on any team, is not being himself, it's going to affect the rest of the team. So I do think that Atlanta has just as good a shot as any. We need to stop talking about them as if they in the dogfight. Rightfully so. Philadelphia has an MVP candidate in Joel Embiid. Trae Young is an up-and-coming superstar. Both of these teams are trying to find their niche in an NBA that's talked about. That's talking about teams like Boston, like Milwaukee, like the Phoenix Suns, talking about everybody but these two squads. So I do think Atlanta got a shot to go out there and show Philadelphia and put the rest of the NBA on notice to let them know we are a young team, no pun intended, but we can definitely go out there, Kevin and BJ, and still get it done, because we're in the second round. Where the Knickerbockers at? Oh, that's right. Where LeBron at? Oh, that's right. They watching these young boys go out there and get this. So Trey, be yourself. Nate McMillan, you should have got coach of the year. I don't care when you became the head coach. Tom Thibodeau, that's laughable.
No, that's true. We'll see. Hey, and again, I think Atlanta has played well at home under Nate McMillan. We'll see if they get off to a hot start tonight. And then BJ, well, I would say normally you'd feel good about going down to South Florida to bounce it back against the Marlins, but man, Braves can't find any traction whatsoever.
Just stay away from Adam Duvall, okay? Low and outside. Nothing down the middle. Keep it away from Adam Duvall. You'll be fine. Let's get the offense going. And Kevin, if you're up 7-2, maybe you don't need a great performance from the bullpen. Maybe. So let's just build a big lead here.
Well, don't say that. I actually had a friend who in the bottom of the 10th goes, well, let's hope they don't mess this up. Well, they never got it out, and well, the rest is history. We'll see you on Monday. We'll be getting ready for Hawks and 76ers Game 4 on Monday night as well. This is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.